This is Austin Real Estate Investing. Austin Real Estate Investing. We'll be discussing real estate investing in Austin, Texas, and bringing you experts from all different sectors of the real estate game. Your host, Jordan Moorhead, is a real estate agent and investor in Austin and is here to help you get started or to build your portfolio and explore new strategies.
Hi, this is Jordan Moorhead, and this is Austin Real Estate Investing. Today we have Lynn Currie here with us, and she's going to tell us all about how she's involved in real estate investing in Austin, Texas. Hey, Lynn, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Jordan?
Doing well.
Good deal.
Could you tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you're involved with Austin Real Estate Investing?
Yeah. So, as you said, I'm Lynn Currie. I own a company called Starling Development here in Austin. And I started investing in real estate right out of college, and most of it, primarily all of it, in Austin because I live here. I went to UT, and when I graduated, I kind of understood. I had read enough books that real estate made sense. So when all my friends were getting jobs and buying new cars, I got a job and started buying houses. That's morphed into, over the years, I bought some commercial properties, and now my core business is actually building spec homes, custom homes, and doing small land development deals.
That's awesome. So I talked to quite a few college-age kids that want to get out of college and start investing in real estate right away. How did you pull that off?
I got really lucky. So my dad in the 70s in Austin had bought a bunch of rental properties. Well, a bunch. He had bought 8 rental properties. And what was happening then at the time is the market was crashing. And so it was fairly easy. My dad was career Marine Corps. It's fairly easy for him to get the loans, and he was able to do that. And when I graduated from college was about the time that he was wanting to sell them all. So I actually bought it. He gave me a decent deal on it, but the time, it was a very different time. The house, I think, the value of the house was something like $74,000, and he sold it to me for $67,000. So he kind of gave me a deal, but it needed some work. And I had gotten a pretty decent job and worked for a few months, and I was able to get a loan. Everything kind of comes and goes, and is sometimes loans are easy to get, sometimes loans are hard to get. At the time, it was fairly easy. I got it. I did the work in the house myself and lived in the house for a couple of years before I was able to buy another house, and I was able to rent that one out. So that's kind of how I started. Like I said, friends were buying cars and kind of going out and living their life and trying to spending their money on all this fun stuff. And I bought a house. So, it's a little more difficult now that in most of the cities that houses, or at least here in Austin, since your target's Austin, houses they're not $75,000 anymore. So it's a lot more difficult now. Yeah.
Yeah, average home price in the Austin area is in the 330s right now. So.
Yeah, that's a very different loan than a 70. I can't remember what my mortgage payment was, but I think it was $750 or $800. It wasn't, it wasn't crazy.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
So you started with what we would call house hacking. You lived in the house for a while, and then you rented it out when you moved out.
I did. Yeah.
Still a great way to get started, but you started right out of college, which I think is the best time to get started too, and been able to grow that quite a bit. It sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, it was really interesting because when I first got out of college, I was excited about investing and really exciting about building up the portfolio and how quickly I could do it. And there were times I was super depressed, like I could only buy one house, or then it took me years to get the second house. And it's funny that now that I'm 50, people think I'm a genius, and they're like, "I can't believe you have all that real estate." And it's like, well, I did it one very tiny step at a time, and it just built over time. So it feels at the time that you're doing it, maybe it's a little overwhelming or you're not doing enough, but it adds up. Yeah. And those values, if you're in a good market, those values, and Austin's a great market, they just keep going up.
And I think you make a great point there. So, a lot of people want to get started or just getting started real estate investing, and they say, hey, I can only buy one house a year. And
a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot over a long period of time. If you do that for quite a few years and they start paying themselves down and the values of them rise, you've got a pretty nice looking portfolio. So
Yeah. I mean, if you started at, let's say you started at 22, by 42, you got 20 houses and a lot. And, and the first half of them are pretty significantly paid down.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's easy to want to move fast, but there's nothing wrong with moving slow.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So what attracted you to real estate investing? You said you were interested in it in college and then just sort of wanted to get into it out of college and jumped in it right away. What initially attracted you to it?
I think it's really funny because I think the things that we remember in our childhood are sometimes they're a little bit different than reality. So, I saw my dad buy those houses and my dad and I had these conversations about how they were part of his retirement plan and, kind of what his purpose was. So that's probably the first little inkling I got. My dad did a lot of, I've got two sisters, and he talked to us always about kind of investing and saving for retirement and all that other stuff. And that was just one of the tools he was using. And then in college, I don't know what made me seek out these books, but I was reading some of the more well-known real estate books of the time. And it was, somebody asked me the other day the name of the guys in the books, and I can't remember what they were, but they were very popular at the time. And in reading them, the math made sense to me. Like I've got a journalism degree. I could have got, I wasn't going to go do something really, at least for me, very exciting because I didn't really want to be a journalist. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things. I read the books. I understood the math. It was fairly simple. And I just kind of did it. I didn't have a great fear of failing. I mean, the first house I was going to live in it anyways. So it was a matter of, could I afford the mortgage payment? And then, I just kind of kept going that way. I rarely get on that kind of thing so overwhelmed with making the decision. I think a lot of people do. I think people, they just keep running the numbers and keep running the numbers and keep running the numbers. And it's like, it kind of either works or it doesn't. And if it works, it works.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that healthy or unhealthy fear of, well, what if it doesn't work? I was like, well, I need a house. I can afford the mortgage payment, whatever, let's go. And I looked up and I knew what people were renting for. So I knew I'd be able to rent it to cover the mortgage payment with the rent.
Yeah, and you saw your dad do it too, which was really helpful to say, hey, he's done this 8 times. Why shouldn't I start doing this?
Yeah, that's true. Although he hated it. So.
Oh, really?
Well, you have to keep in mind he had to have a management company because we were in Austin in the mid 70s, but then we left because he got transferred. So it was always out in the distance, and the houses, many of them weren't in great neighborhoods. So the quality of the tenants often weren't great. So when people would move out, a lot of times there was a bill that was coming with it. But, at the end of the day, he sold the houses and made money. So, he was just tired. He was like many other landlords. He was tired of dealing with it.
Absolutely. And I think, when it comes to finding rental properties, that's always a great opportunity to find a rental property as a landlord that's tired of dealing with it. This property I'm in East Austin, the landlord was just tired of dealing with it and hadn't fixed much up and wasn't getting high rents. And I was able to get a great deal on it because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think my only thing is I wish my dad had let me buy the one and held on to the other ones for about 5 or 6 more years. So then I could have figured out how to buy those. But that wasn't even on my radar at the time, nor his,
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
you said you're in Austin. He was in Austin when he bought all these houses, but got transferred out. So you've seen other parts of the country or parts of the world. Why do you choose to live and invest in Austin?
Well, I mean, Austin's a great place to live, so it's a fairly easy, why have I never left? I mean, there's a ton of us who came here to go to college and then never left. So that just kind of is what it is. I've toyed on other occasions of moving to, Colorado or somewhere like that where it's not so hot in the summer, but I've never done it. So here I am. And then why do I invest in Austin? I mean, we're in one of the best real estate markets in the country by far. We have been, since I've moved here. I've been here for over 30 years now. And so I don't know why I would go do it anywhere else, except if I were buying rental properties right now, I actually probably would go. I'd probably go out of state.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're mostly developing spec homes right now, correct?
yes. So I build to sell.
Awesome. Man, that's
Yeah.
a great thing to do here right now.
Yeah, it's a good gig. I've been doing it for about 11 years, and it's a good job.
Absolutely. So, Lynn, it sounds like you've done quite a few deals and you've seen your dad do quite a few deals. Could you tell us about a bad deal you've been through, or maybe some lessons you've learned of what not to do? Maybe the deal didn't necessarily go wrong and you lost any money, but maybe just something you've learned and you want to tell the listeners, hey, don't do this.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't made any horrible deals. I will say that. I mean, and one of the great things about real estate in a good market is even a bad deal gets fixed with time. So if you're willing to hold on to something as long as you can afford it, it's a great thing. I think the best advice though is like, don't fall in love with a deal. Just this is when you're investing, and it's different if you're going to buy a house and live in it, but when you're buying an investment property, it's about the numbers and follow your gut, right? So I invest where I know. So it's pretty easy. I drive by the neighborhood, I drive by the house. Well, if I were buying rental houses, but you just look at everything. And if I get a bad feeling about something, I just move on. And even in buying land, like when I say land, when I buy a house that I'm doing urban infill, so I'm tearing down houses, if there's a hoarder house next door that's going to decrease the value of the property or of a new build or make it hard to sell, I think long and hard about that. And it isn't necessarily a deal killer. It just has to be something that I change what I was going to do on that property so that doesn't become a hindrance in the end. So for instance, I'm going to throw out rough numbers. I do a lot in 78704. And if I'm building something that I'm hoping to sell for $1.5 million, and there's an absolute hoarder house right next door, I know that I've just lost probably $500,000 of that, because I can still sell that house because it's in a neighborhood people want, and they will do that to get in there, but nobody's going to pay top of market for that property. So you just kind of know that. Maybe because of that, I was able to shave off a couple $100,000 of the lot price. So maybe it's worth it. And then I just build something that's a little bit less expensive to build. It's just a matter of understanding your numbers, understanding what you're doing, and choose the right thing for what that is, and go with your gut. Like, don't let yourself convince yourself that something will work when it won't. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the biggest problems. It's like, every project has a problem or an issue or something, a problem you have to solve, or it's just a matter of whether those work in that scenario for what you want to do.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a great point of easier with buy and hold. If you're buying, let's say, a house in East Austin, and the house next door is just a complete piece of junk, but you plan on holding on to this rental property for 5 to 7 or 10 years before you're going to sell it, chances are that house next door may be fixed up. But yeah, when you're buying something where you're going to tear down the house and build new and sell it in less than a year or maybe a year and a half, you can't afford that.
Yeah.
So you need to know what you're doing, and you need to know what's going on with the local area, and what your strategy is, because what works for me might not work for you.
Yeah. So, and there's very few, like, everybody always asks me if I get a good deal on things. It's like, there's very few deals. Mm-hmm. Houses go for what they're worth. Mostly. Like, I've bought a few things where I've been like, whoa, they could have gotten more for that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, they go for what they're worth. So just know that. Don't just make it work in your numbers.
Hey guys, this is Jordan Moorhead here, and I wanted to ask if you could do a huge favor for me. If you could go leave a review for this podcast wherever you're listening to it, that would really help me get this into the hands of other people that are interested in information about Austin real estate investing, and I'd be able to help more people. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. If it works for you, it works, and that's all that matters. All right. Is there one thing you could tell us that newer investors should know? So maybe somebody's looking to do infill construction, and you want to tell them just one thing they need to look out for.
One thing. You've got to be properly capitalized. It's the biggest way you won't get in trouble. I mean, things cost money. You've got to be able to, things happen, accidents happen. And I don't mean like accidents like somebody falls off a ladder. I mean, you planned for this HVAC system that it was $10,000 and you figured out that that's not going to work. And now it needs to be $20,000. Like, you've got to have the money to do the project. Otherwise, what happens is you get halfway through and you've run out of money and you are dead in the water.
Do you have some sort of contingency budget? Like, maybe, I try to budget, hey, my repairs are going to be this amount. I'll tack on 20%.
Yeah.
Did you do something like that too?
Depends on the project. If there's really some unknowns in it, I've been doing this long enough that I'm pretty good at my budgeting. Mm-hmm. But so I don't necessarily tack on a contingency, and I also try to budget high. So I don't try to kid myself that, labor is going to get cheaper in the next year. I would rather, cushion things along the way and get it right and not run out of money. The other thing is I'm now at a point where if I need to inject more capital into a project, I generally can do that. I don't like to. It screws up my numbers, but if I have to do it, I can do it. So I would say for a new investor, man, just comb through all the details and make sure you've got as much information as you know to put your budget together. And, if you don't know how much it costs to install a water heater, go to the Home Depot website, figure out how to get the water heater, or Lowe's or Home Depot, one or both of them do it. They'll give you a cost for installation. Mm-hmm. Use their costs. You're not going to have to pay more for it somewhere else. You've already got the cost. So figure out what you need to do, figure out what it's going to cost to get it done, and put it into your budget. And don't kid yourself. Don't go, oh, well, Home Depot says they'll do it for $300. I think I can get it for $250. No, put the $300 in your budget.
Yeah. And you were speaking of costs going up over time. So a few years ago, Home Depot would install a 50-gallon water heater with the water heater for around $1,000. Anytime recently, I've heard $1,200 to $1,400 from people that have called Home Depot. So
yeah,
don't talk to your Uncle Bob that did this 6 years ago. Call and get the number now.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's critical. And we're in a tight labor market, and right now because of COVID, we're in supply chain. I don't want to use the word disaster, but sometimes supply chain disasters. So I rarely expect prices to go down. I would always expect them to go up a little bit.
Yeah, and you talked about supply chain disasters. The prices have gone up so much because of COVID for things like lumber and other materials you're dealing with. You kind of wonder if they're going to go back down to normal prices after COVID. When they're getting $5 for a 2x4, why are they going to take $3 for a 2x4 when they can get more supply?
Yeah, I think some of them will. Some of it, like right now, they're about to cut the tariffs on the lumber, or they're saying they're going to. So that'll bring it down some. Some of that is true supply and demand, but you're right. Some of them won't come down.
Yeah. And
some of them I think will. I think there's enough screaming going on around lumber prices that they'll come down just because they went up so fast. Yeah, but again, a lot of that was supply chain issues. Mm-hmm. So we'll see, right? I mean, right now everything I'm budgeting right now has current lumber prices in it, and I'm watching the futures, and I'm watching some of that other stuff to kind of try to see what's going to happen, but you just never know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hope it adjusts, but you never know.
Yeah.
So Lynn, you've been in this for a while, and you've definitely dealt with lots of issues as anybody in real estate is. What's your best mindset advice for staying positive and staying motivated?
I think the easiest thing to just remind yourself is we're not saving lives here. We're not doctors. We're not surgeons. Things happen all the time. Your job is to solve problems, remove obstacles, and keep moving forward. And if you can just keep doing that, I think you're doing all right. And some days it won't feel like you're doing that, but it's like we're building houses. Things are going to go wrong. It's custom manufacturing. Mm-hmm. I don't swing a hammer. I've got crews that do all the work. So I just really look at my job as to show up when there's a problem and fix or address the problem in such a way as the guys can keep moving. And then I go home and relax. I don't know. I just can't get too worked up over most of it. There's people with much harder, much more stressful jobs. The money part can be stressful sometimes, but man, I live a pretty charmed life. I don't sit in an office most of the time. I get to build beautiful things. I get to talk to people who enjoy what they're doing most of the time. I don't know. It's hard to get too upset about it.
Can't get mad. Could be worse.
Could be a lot worse. Could be a lot worse.
So, Lynn, do you have a favorite business or mindset book you'd like to recommend for the listeners?
Oh, people love that question. So what I'll do is I'll tell you, there's a book that I read that there's been a couple books that were life changing, and they're not real estate related, but they are business related. And one is David Allen's Getting Things Done. I like many of us am fairly classic ADHD, I keep a lot of stuff in my head, and I mostly am able to keep all the balls in the air and keep them going. But every once in a while I drop something. So I many, many years ago learned his Getting Things Done methodology and then modified it to work a little bit better with me. And I don't necessarily use it daily in the sense that you're supposed to check things daily, but I've always got my list and I do check it, and I find out, I'm like, oh, didn't do that, and I can go do it. And it's on my phone, it's on my computer, it's on my iPad. So anywhere I am, I have access to it. And then the other one was, before I got into real estate, I owned an ad agency, and I read a book called The E-Myth. And I think many people have read that one. And the E-Myth did a couple things for me. One, it tells you the importance of processes and documenting your processes and working through them so that you can hand off portions of your business. It also helps you identify which one of the types of people you are, whether you're, the visionary, the technician, or I can't remember what the salesperson. I can't remember what the third one was. Mm-hmm. Figure out who you are. And then it also weirdly gave me permission to stop doing the things I'm not good at. And I've just gotten there's things that I'm really good at, and I tend to enjoy the things I'm really good at. And those are the things that make me money. And the other parts tend to take up way too much time and cause too much stress. So I've learned to let other people do those things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The E-Myth is a great book. I have not
fantastic
read
book.
Getting Things Done, and I'll have to pick that up too.
Yeah.
So how long were you doing the ad agency thing?
I did that for almost 18 years, 18 to 20. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That was the last gig I had before I did this. Yeah.
Awesome. So Lynn, how can people get a hold of you, and how can they partner with you? So how can people help you, and how can they reach you to talk about this?
Yeah. So, the easiest way is my website. I'm on all of them. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on my website, which is starlingdevelopment.com, and Starling with an A. There's a contact form on there. There's a phone number for me on there. You can either text or call me. I'm on Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel. So there's all sorts of ways to get to know me. And then how do I work with folks? I do a few things. I work with investors. I have people that invest in my projects, and I'd like to think I'm a pretty good risk with your money that gets pretty good returns. And I think the best way to say that is pretty much all of my investors come back and go into other projects. And then what was I thought I was going to say something, and that's all I got. But
so really reach out to you via your website or one of these social media platforms, and if somebody wants to invest with you on some of your ground up development, you'd love to talk to them.
Sure. Yeah. There we go.
All right.
And then I do because of the business that I'm in, I do custom homes too, but that's not really the focus of this podcast. So yeah.
Sure. Well, let's talk about that real quick. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you do there? Yeah.
It's not unlike building a spec home, except for it is, because the business model's a little bit different, and you've got the client involved. So it's really more of a client management and a project management versus a project management job. But that got started because I was building these spec homes, and people would walk through them and love them, but it wasn't necessarily the right home for them. And people were asking me if I'd do custom work. And for the longest time I said no. And then finally one day I said, yeah, I'll do a custom job. And I started doing that probably 6-ish years ago now. And I had to the first couple were a little rough. I had to come up with new processes and new ways of doing things, and really learn to focus on what's important to the client, because that's one of the most stressful things that most people do is get a house built for themselves and be involved in that process.
Yeah.
I've kind of in the past joked that I should probably get some sort of marriage counseling certificate for doing that kind of work. But over the years and through the projects, I would like to think I've gotten pretty good at helping clients through that process. There's sometimes going to be some rough patches just because of the way it all goes. But, it's kind of a similar process. My job is to, one, provide them with a beautiful house, and two, hopefully help them keep their sanity through the entire process.
So do you help people just build on raw land, or do they buy lots with existing homes on them and then you tear them down and build there? Or what do you do mostly? We've
done all of the above. We've done, and we've also helped them find the land.
Oh.
Because when you're building in the city of Austin, we've got a lot of rules and regulations, and you find folks that they want to build something, but they don't necessarily know what they can build on a specific parcel or on a specific lot. And some realtors have a pretty good idea of it. And some don't. And so usually they've got a realtor. I'm not a realtor. So they've got a realtor, or I can refer them to a realtor, because that's not, there's so many other pieces of it. But what happens is when they find something they're interested in, if they're thinking of making an offer on it, they can just, let me know. I'll go by. It takes me, 10 minutes to drive, other than the drive, but I can sit and look at it. I can go check out a piece of property and tell them in 5-10 minutes whether they're going to be able to do what they want on that lot. Okay. Unless there's something just really crazy going on. But most of the time it's really simple. So that's how we do that portion of it.
Awesome. So do you build houses with ADUs for people, or is it mostly just one house on one lot?
Yeah, we're doing again, both, but a lot of folks now want either an ADU or a casita or something else with it.
Yep.
It's funny because when I first started building, it was mostly the duplex model that we would then sell off either side. And then the ADUs became really popular. And they were starting, I do most of my work in the city in 78704, and those were kind of starting to fall off as the house prices got higher. So most people were starting to build just one house on the lot because people weren't wanting to pay that much for a house that then they shared the lot with somebody else. They wanted the whole yard. And then it flipped again to where people wanted the two houses. They just wanted to buy them themselves. So we do. I've got one that I'm working on right now that we're building big house, little house, same lot.
Yeah. I think it's a great use of your land in the city anymore too. All right. So I know a lot of our listeners are interested in the ADU model, or maybe building new and putting an ADU there too. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. And hopefully at some point there will be some land development code changes that make those restrictions and how it has to be done a little bit looser. Because I think that one of the things we're missing are the tools to buy a lot that has a little house on it that's usually towards the front of the lot, and build the big house in the back. So you preserve the little house in the front and go in the back for the big house. Right now, the code has us tearing all these homes down. And a lot of people really they want to keep those houses. A lot of folks really, either the house isn't in that bad a shape, or they have a soft spot for the actual design and character of that home. Right now, that's just really difficult to do. So we end up building two.
Yeah. Who knows when they finally get the codes?
Who knows?
It's been a few years now they've been working on that. Hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah, we'll see. All I know is we just work with what they give us at this point, and that's all we can do.
It's all you can do.
Yep.
All right, Lynn. One last question, probably the most important question I ask anybody here is, what's your favorite restaurant in Austin?
Ooh, so, well, in the before times, I'll use that one, before the COVID days, because I don't go to restaurants near as much as I used to. I used to eat out at least probably once a day. I think one of my favorites is Emmer and Rye down on Rainey Street. I think they're doing some really interesting stuff, some fantastic food, got a great wine list. I love to go in there, like I said, in the before times, sit at the bar, talk to the bartenders. The chef will come out and talk to you. And I just think they're doing some great things down there.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that out. I have not been there.
Yeah, it's a good one.
There's so many. I ask this question every episode, and I can never keep up with all the restaurants people give me. I have just an endless, exhaustive list of great restaurants to go to. But
you need to do a chart of them on your website so we can also see how many are, overlaps and how many people vote the same ones. I mean, but to your point, there's so many. Sometimes it's like, give me a country I'm eating for and I can give you a restaurant kind of thing,
Absolutely. Really, there aren't so many overlaps so far.
Interesting.
I've not heard the same restaurant too many times.
Well, you'll need to do more podcasts then.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Lynn, thank you so much for coming on here. I really appreciate it.
Sure, thank you.
If somebody wants to reach out to you, what is the name of your website again?
It's Starling Development with an A. So it's Starling like the bird, development.com. But they can also find me at lyncurriebuilds.com, which houses my YouTube channel, although my YouTube channel has more videos.
All right. So check Lynn out on starlingdevelopment.com. Definitely reach out to her if you have any questions about building a custom home in the city of Austin.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Lynn. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.